In what many thought was the twilight of its career, the Jaguar went to war. Operational experience of over 1,000 sorties by British and French Jaguars did not find the aircraft lacking in any way. It was only after the Jaguar gave up its original strike and interdiction role in Europe that it found its true forte as a rapid reaction out-of-area fighter-bomber, able to operate in the most primitive conditions and still hit its target with pinpoint accuracy. Replaced by the Tornado and Mirage 2000 at the very tip of the spear, the Jaguar became an invaluable tool for operations outside Europe. The aircraft responded to just the sort of scenario that has become so important since the end of the Cold War. If you ever see a pair of RAF Jaguars practicing their trade seriously, you might find it hard to believe that this versatile strike fighter will soon have clocked up 20 years of frontline service, hurtling through valleys at breakneck speed, hugging the contours, rolling inverted as it crests hills or ridges. It would be easy to imagine that the Jaguar was equipped with the most sophisticated terrain-following system. In fact, the Jaguar has no radar at all, relying on pilot skill and a sophisticated inertial navigation and attack system to find its targets. Perhaps, even more incredibly, the Jaguar is expected to do this in virtually all weathers. Rugged, reliable, and relatively simple, and able to operate from even the most difficult airstrips, the Jaguar is an ideal aircraft for out-of-area operations. Thus today, when the RAF needs to show a presence in any trouble spot, Jaguars are likely to be sent first. This was the case following the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait, and the RAF's Jaguars went on to build an impressive war record. RAF Jaguars based in Turkey flew operational armed reconnaissance sorties over Iraq, allowing the international community to monitor Saddam Hussein's compliance with its peace terms. Small wonder that even in the exclusive fast jet single-seat world, a posting to the Jaguar force is highly prized. Only the best of the best who successfully complete advanced flying training actually end up at RAF Cotteshall. In India, Oman, Ecuador, Nigeria, and even in France, Jaguar pilots enjoyed a similarly elite status.
The Jaguars for Operation Life Flight were based at Gioia del Cor, which is an Italian Air Force base not far from Brindisi in the south of Italy. And we'd fly in cooperation with all NATO aircraft while on deny flight, whether it be tanker assets, which were RAF TriStars, and we'd use NATO and RAF AWACS aircraft to monitor us as we were flying over the area. In Italy, we do a tour of duty of 2 months at a time, flying reconnaissance and bombing sorties over Bosnia. We do 2 months there, come back to Cotteshall for 4 months, and then return out there for a further 2. For Operation Knife Flight, the Jaguar role was twofold. We did reconnaissance to pinpoint artillery pieces especially around the Sarajevo area, and also any convoy movement on the ground. And we also flew armed close air support sorties, and we had 24-hour presence of NATO aircraft over Bosnia should any UN peacekeepers come under attack from one of the warring factions. If they were called for, we could go and help them out. All Jaguars flying over Bosnia were fitted with self-defense Sidewinder missiles in case coming under air attack. We were also fitted with 2,000-pound bombs should they be required, and all Jaguars were fitted with 230mm cannon. All fast jet aircraft pilots have to wear a special helmet. It also contains the headset and the microphone through the oxygen mask. We also have visors fitted to the front of it, which give protection during any ejection, and also if a bird came through the windscreen of the jet, it would protect our eyes. Underneath that, we have a life preserver, which keeps us buoyant in the water. The jacket also contains emergency radio, first aid kit, etc. And on top of our undergarments, we wear what we call an immersion suit, a dry suit like a windsurfer would use in case we were to land in the sea. As Jaguar pilots, we changed our training philosophy before going out to Italy from being low-level flying around the UK into the medium-level environment, which is what we use over Bosnia. A typical day for the pilot in Italy is different from the one we're used to back at Calder Shore. We generally don't go to work unless we're going to be flying. We'll arrive at work 2 or 3 hours before our planned takeoff time, so we can catch up with the latest intelligence briefs, collect our pieces for taking with us on the flight, plan it, brief it, go and collect the aircraft from the ground crew, give them a check, and then get airborne. We generally fly as a pair of aircraft, usually flying through a tanker, a TriStar, refueling, going through specific corridors into Bosnian airspace, where we get allocated tasks as we get into the airfield. Once we're complete on our task, usually due to fuel rather than time, we re-enter other corridors and go direct back to Gioia. Once we've landed, we return the aircraft to the ground crew, debrief lasting maybe 15-20 minutes, also giving our intelligence officers an update of what you saw, and then the end of the day.
The Jaguar was developed and designed as a training aircraft under an Anglo-French agreement between the British Aircraft Corporation and the French company Jaguar Aviation. The program for the Jaguar was headed by an independent company set up for the project, Sepecat. At the time, the Royal Air Force and the French Air Force needed a replacement aircraft to fulfill the requirement for an advanced jet trainer with a secondary role as a strike aircraft. From the drawing board to the first flight, the Jaguar project was to make the outstanding achievement of doing just that in 3.5 years. Started in May 1965, the facilities were running at full pace to produce the aircraft on target, on time, and at the right price. It was the vast experience and expertise of both BAC and Jaguar that enabled the project to meet the deadline. Advanced manufacturing techniques were applied to the production in both the French and the British factories. The target date was met. April 1968. In Paris, the Jaguar was unveiled to the world's press. Now completed, this prototype twin-engined, two-seat trainer started its flight trials at Istres in the south of France. It was now envisaged that with this new aircraft, pilots could be trained at a fraction of the cost of using operational aircraft. supersonic Jaguar could fly for over 3 hours on training missions, and unlike most other trainers of this type, it could also be equipped with full defense weaponry. The first prototype, EO-1, lined up for its first fast taxi run prior to its first flight. At the controls was test pilot Bernard Witt. Having completed all of his cockpit checks, he selected reheat on. The two turbo mecha jets pushed the aircraft down the runway, producing a total thrust of nearly 7,000 kilos. Jimmy Dell, BAC's Jaguar project test pilot, was highly delighted at seeing this prototype leave the ground during the fast taxi run. But this was not the first flight. That was scheduled for early the next day, Sunday, the 8th of September. Fully fueled and with a pilot already strapped in, the Jaguar was towed to the run-up position at 8 a.m. All of those concerned with the Anglo-French project watched as the final preparations were carried out. The technical chase aircraft, the Mirage 3, took off with Jimmy Dell on board. 9:20 a.m. The Jaguar was cleared for its first takeoff.
Et je pense qu'il faut passer aux basses vitesses dès maintenant.
Oui, attends une seconde, on est quand même. Ah, il s'engage. Il a un petit peu tendance à roulailler, on dirait. Il me paraît pointé en grossissement, hein. Je vais mettre l'amortisseur de iode pour voir si c'est plus heureux. Oui, j'ai l'impression d'être plus heureux comme ça. 17 pieds, les deux, donc.
30 minutes after takeoff, the Jaguar landed. The first flight successfully completed. Mr. Hayhurst of the Ministry of Technology.
This is a spectacular day in the development of the Jaguar aircraft, this first military combat aircraft which is being developed jointly by France and the United Kingdom. And its first flight marks the occasion of the first stage completed successfully of its development. We are confident that this is going to be an aeroplane of great operational use, and at the same time it has a very important export potential to other European and extra-European countries.
When asked about the first flight, BAC's Jimmy Dell replied,
Well, much as I would have liked to have been in the prime position of flying the prototype, I think I was in the next best position, which was in the chase aircraft, which had a sort of grandstand view of the whole thing. And from what I could see, it performed exactly as predicted.
French pilot Bernard Witt was more than pleased with his first flight.
Très content, une excellente impression pour le premier vol. Je pense que nous allons revoler très rapidement et poursuivre les essais dans de très bonnes conditions.
Mr. Page, chairman of BAC's Preston division.
I'm delighted that this, the first of the Anglo-French military aircraft, has made its very successful first flight. And I hope that it will soon be giving good service with the air forces of France and of Great Britain and of many other countries. This is a very great day in European aviation, and the pilots and all concerned in it, in Breguet and BAC, the ground staffs, the engineers and the pilots are to be congratulated on a very good day's work.
For an aircraft whose original design dates back to the 1960s, the Jaguar has remarkably sophisticated all-round avionics, employing digital computing. This makes the aircraft well-equipped and able to survive against modern defenses that have been deployed in wars many years after the aircraft's inauguration into service. The British version has an advanced system based on inertial navigation, which is fitted in both the trainer and operational aircraft. The major aim of the British system was to provide simplicity of operation for the pilot, leaving him free to concentrate his maximum attention on flying the aircraft. This is of particular value during missions where he depends on low-altitude flying to avoid detection and achieve surprise. The system gives the Jaguar pilots the ability to select and locate their targets without any assistance from the ground. Construction of the Jaguar is entirely of metal, 85% of it aluminium alloy. There is a high-mounted wing with spoilers in place of ailerons, and conventional tail lift configuration incorporating high-lift devices and an all-moving tailplane. Structural strength and fatigue-resistant properties were ensured by the cutting of several components from solid aluminium, while titanium was used in the engine bay and stainless steel in the highly stressed areas. The stout undercarriage and twin main wheels are optimized for rough field operations and are able to absorb a high sink rate in soft soil conditions, making the aircraft extremely versatile in takeoff and landing from difficult or even makeshift airfields. A tail parachute is fitted, as is an airfield arrestor hook. The pilot is accommodated ahead of a three-piece windscreen under a rear-hinged canopy. The cockpit is armored and air-conditioned. By spring 1974, the first frontline Jaguar squadron, number 54, was operating from RAF Cotteshall, a Jaguar conversion unit having been established 6 months previously at RAF Lossiemouth. There have been 8 RAF Jaguar squadrons, plus 226 OCU at Lossiemouth. 5 of these were assigned to RAF Germany, along with the NATO front line. The roles of the aircraft were interdiction, tactical close support of ground forces, attack against enemy aircraft on the ground, tactical reconnaissance, and type conversion training using the two-seater variant. The Jaguar squadrons of the Royal Air Force reached full operational capability in a very short time. Many factors contributed to this, not least the engineering design philosophy which has given the aircraft its high service ability. Jaguar Engineering Officer, Flight Lieutenant Alistair Lang.
The quick-release access panels, covering 30% of the aircraft's surface, have made our job much easier. Routine maintenance was planned in detail with BAC right from the Jaguar's very early days. Few items are light, the majority being serviced on condition. Replacing lighter unserviceable components can be done very quickly. An engine change, for example, including the test running, can be done in under 3 hours. This means that the squadrons get their aircraft back in a pretty short time.
Dave, I've 3 for you. 719, 721, 729.
For the Royal Air Force to fulfill its present and future operation requirements, the training of pilots to full combat status was always a primary task. Each day, combat sorties were planned to test the operational fitness of the plane, the pilots, and the ground crews. Indeed, all those needed for the successful completion of an operational sortie. Live weapon sorties, particularly gun firing, practice bombs, and 1,000-pound high explosive bombs, were dropped on ranges throughout Europe. But the variety of targets against which live rounds can be delivered are limited. Many simulated exercises had to be flown to create near-true combat conditions. Wing Commander Neil Haywood led an attack in support of defending ground forces on an exercise in cooperation with the Army.
Right, gentlemen, just a brief recap before we walk out. Our job is to take out the enemy armor, simulating cluster bomb attacks against the moving targets. Explosives on the ground, fired by an umpire, will indicate the position of our bombs, so timing and accuracy are essential. Immediately behind us will be a recce Jaguar for post-attack assessment. All attacks will be low level and straight in, so from now on, please treat it as the real thing. Takeoff is at 0820, and our call sign is can opener. After takeoff, clean up and turn left onto 147 degrees true. Remember that in this situation, there would be plenty of AAA and SAM, so we'll use our best defense. We'll remain a difficult target so long as we stay low and fast.
Bassoon, bassoon. This is can opener formation with 8 Jaguars approaching the contact point.
Can opener, this is Bassoon. We have you overhead. Your IP is 0215. Call Fortune 5 on TAT 2. The battle area is now active.
Control of the aircraft now passed to a battlefield forward air controller. Having received the code for the identification or contact point, the pilot inserts his coordinates into the computer as a waypoint. They need only then select the waypoint to receive steering instructions on the head-up display direct to it.
Fortune 5. Can opener formation approaching IP 0215. 8 aircraft with CBUs. Can opener, this is Fortune 5. Your target 4 squadrons light and heavy armor making it northeast, bearing 227 degrees true from IP 0215, range 4.6 miles. No friendly forces beyond the IP. You are cleared to attack as soon as possible.
As the Jaguars pass exactly over their targets, umpires, mobile in their own tanks, detonate explosives in the ground and assess the kill factor.
From umpire 4, red, yellow, and blue sections are killed. Remain stationary. You are withdrawn.
Battlefield close support sorties, such as this, would often be flown from small forward airfields. Jaguar's landing performance, particularly with brake parachute, makes it ideally suitable to such operations. Under average conditions, the ground roll is completed in well under 600 meters. Wing Commander Hayward.
Okay. From where I was sitting, that looked very realistic. The smoke and dust certainly reduced the visibility, but I think we were in right on the line. I suspect that we all had problems with late target acquisition, but nothing that we couldn't cope with. Judging by the number of units withdrawn, I imagine we gave Brigade the timing they wanted and caught the enemy in exactly the right spot. I think we did very well. Right, now let's get down to some detail. Planning and briefing was standard and posed no problems. We taxied 3 minutes early to make sure we had 8 to the end of the runway.
An obvious requirement of any total operational planning is to get the aircraft back into the air again as soon as possible, fully rearmed and probably from a small forward airfield, where space is limited and time is valuable. Jaguar's ground handling ability, which is being able to taxi and turn in small spaces, adds yet another time-saving factor. All trades must be able to work without obstruction and with the minimum of ground equipment. Refueling is done at the same time as the rearming. In this timed practice, 4 1,000-pound bombs would be loaded. The duration of any turnaround depends on the number of ground crew and loading equipment available. For this turnaround, 1 loader and 3 armourers take part. One armourer will take the bomb into position and lock it, whilst the 2 others prepare the pylons. They will return to the bomb to position the crutching pads and arm the release units when it's in place. The internal and 2 wing tanks are refueled with 5,242 kilograms in under 15 minutes. Three bombs are loaded and armed in 15 minutes. All other trades having completed their task by this time, less than 20 minutes will elapse before the aircraft is refueled and rearmed.
Yeoman 5, clear taxi, runway 26. Service wind 285 degrees at 5 knots. QNH 998 millibars, outside air temperature +7, over.
In addition to battlefield close support, Jaguar's 2 other primary roles are interdiction and reconnaissance. To simulate a long-range sortie to attack an enemy vehicle park, 2 reconnaissance Jaguars were drawn in order to be over the target at first light. Nearing the target, the pod is rotated, bringing the camera into position. 5 cameras are available, which at 250 feet give horizon-to-horizon coverage, or the pilot can select any one best suited to a particular target and his chosen method of approach. Infrared line scan is fitted for night work. Wing Commander John Thompson led this reconnaissance sortie.
The recce pilot's job isn't done until he has passed his report back or delivered the film for processing. Until then, it is essential to survive. We plan to minimize exposure to enemy defensive systems by tactical routing, flying fast and low, and above all, by making only one pass. Jaguar's navigation system and low flying characteristics really help out, and the recce pod can cope with any high-speed, low-altitude combination we can fly.
Unloading the camera magazines is a quick and simple job. Replacements will be fitted immediately and tested, completing a very quick turnaround on the pods. The pilot would indicate priority magazines that would be processed ahead of the others, whilst he completed his initial verbal debrief. The hardened aircraft shelters of Home Base Airfield presents no problems. The aircraft can be brought quickly onto the chocks and then winched backward into the shelter in the normal way, ready to be turned round under considerable protection for aircraft and all crew members. All normal turnaround tasks are completed in the shelter, and when required, the aircraft will start up inside and taxis straight to the runway to take part in long-range simulated interdiction sorties against a group of vehicles on a bombing range. The final intelligence details are being extracted from both the negatives and prints. Prints are only made from the most revealing negatives. The detailed flight planning of the sortie can be done by a limited number of pilots taking part. The ease with which the coordinates of the turning points and targets can be inserted into the navigation and weapon aiming system before takeoff or in the air means the pilot can be free for other essential pre-flight duties. The remaining shortened, coordinated briefing of necessary details yet again reduces the overall turnaround time. Flight Lieutenant Keith Blatchford.
On the first leg, we had a long transit over the sea of nearly 30 minutes, planning to turn inland over a lighthouse. As we come within 2 minutes of the light, you'll see the head-up display changing automatically from navigation to close navigation. And the cross, just off to the right, shows the computed position of the lighthouse. Just coming up onto track, now. And the time circle shows 30 seconds to run. It's easy to see why the Jaguar system has received universal acceptance, not only in the Air Force, but with those guest pilots from overseas who have flown the aeroplane. For the fighter pilot, it's made a great difference to be able to arrive still fresh at the end of a long transit, ready for the more arduous job ahead. We stayed separated from the others on the way. We now joined up with them for the run into the range.
Jupiter, this is Black Cap 1 with 4 Jaguars for live FRA bombs and strafe on targets 5 and 7. Black Cap from Jupiter, you're clear on targets 5 and 7. Call in live. Black Cap 1, roger, understood. Black Cap 1, in line, target 5.
We each dropped 2 bombs, only one of which was live. The separation between the two was set to represent the first and last of a stick of 4. This chap is late acquiring the target, but he still puts his bombs right across the ring of vehicles.
Black Cap 1, in line on target 7.
Section leaving your area, switching to stud 10.
Continuing from the range, the 4 Jaguars divided into pairs again to go to their respective practice targets. 2 will attack the dam, and the first pair will attack a bridge. They will approach the target from different directions, and as the bomb release button is pressed, the head-up display changes from weapon aiming back to navigation. A successful attack. The second aircraft will come from the east, turn right to the target, and this time aim to remove the center section of the bridge. On these simulated attacks, because the chosen route was complex and the target only visible in the last few seconds, the pilots chose to release their bombs manually. On the next attack from the second pair, the pilots have opted for a fully automatic bomb release. Flight Lieutenant Phil Dye.
My target was a dam, so from the map I inserted the exact position into the computer, which then gave me steering instructions direct to the target. With the time circle indicating 25 seconds to target, I know that it lies in the next valley. I then select the final aiming sequence and concentrate on keeping the target bar, the horizontal line, on the target. From here on, bomb release is automatic.
First attack assessment. All attacks will be low level and straight in, so from now on, please treat it as the real thing.
This means that the squadrons get their aircraft back in a pretty short time.
Still puts his bombs right across the ring of vehicles.
From here on, bomb release is automatic.
Will remain a difficult target so long as we stay low and fast.
With Jaguar, I find that one can fly close to the ground with much more confidence. Changes to the plan are less of a problem to deal with. Diverting for any reason, or having to cope with bad weather is so much easier.
The Jaguar doesn't have normal constituted weapons fit. We are tasked with targets, and our weapons instructors on the squadron would then sit down, pick the best weapons fit, and fit that to the aircraft for us to fly. The normal weapons we carry or train to carry are 1,000-pound bombs or cluster bomb units, which would be used for low-level or medium-level attacks.
This is a 1,000-pound general-purpose high-explosive bomb. When it comes into storage, we have to fit together various sections of the bomb before it becomes a dangerous weapon. So what we have is a basic tail, a proximity sensor, and a harness. The weapon is completely safe until it is fused. The fuse is fitted during weapon preparation. There are various types of tail fitted to the weapon. We have a ballistic tail and we have a parachute tail. The connections to the aircraft are 1 electrical and 2 mechanical devices. On release from the aircraft, the weapon can be delivered either safe or in a dangerous condition, deciding on what the pilot has selected in the cockpit. The first one goes to the fuse itself, and the second one is for operating the tail mechanism. The Sidewinder is a short-range supersonic air-to-air missile which tracks its target by using a heat-seeking air target detector. The missile consists basically of a guidance system, an air-optical target detector, a warhead, and a rocket motor. The target is tracked via the guidance control unit. Basically what happens is, the enemy aircraft that we're trying to evade, the signal will be sent to the front of the missile, which will then give a signal to guide the fins, to move the fins to tell the missile which way to travel. At the same time, a signal has also been sent out via the air optical target detector, which also tracks the aircraft to tell the actual missile where the aircraft will be in a matter of seconds. So what happens is the missile doesn't actually follow the aircraft. It'll find out where the aircraft's going to be in a few milliseconds and then intercept the target at a set point. To keep the missile stable, we have 4 wings, and to prevent the missile from spinning, there's 4 gyroscopes, one on each wing. Once the aircraft's launched, the G-force will unlock each gyro, which will then move to the opposite way which the missile moves. So if you can imagine, the enemy aircraft will be trying to evade, and if it does a sharp turn left or right, or whichever way, and the missile didn't have these and done a sharp turn left or right, the missile would then tumble away. To prevent the actual missile from tumbling, all 4 move in conjunction either way to prevent the missile from tumbling. At the same time, the airflow is spinning through these vanes and spinning the gyroscopes round to actually help the gyros move left and right. This is the 600-pound cluster bomb containing 147 anti-personnel, anti-armour bomblets. Each bomblet weighs 1 kg. On release from the aircraft, the outer skin splits away, the weapon ejects the bomblets over the target. The weapon is released from low-level flight. The 30mm Aiden gun cannon is fitted to the left and right hand side of the Jaguar aircraft. It carries 150 rounds per gun and fires 1,200 rounds a minute. Once fired, the spent cases are ejected and the links are retained within the aircraft.
After any mission, if the aircraft is armed or is to be rearmed in the open, it is marshalled to a holding area on a safe part of the airfield. Before shutdown, the pilot opens the air brakes. The ground crew disconnect the gun firing lead and make the aircraft safe. A new tail parachute needs fitting. The old container is removed and then replaced by a new brake chute. The release mechanism is then cocked, ready for operation, and the tail cone is replaced. All of the safety pins in the cockpit are checked. These would have been fitted by the pilot before leaving the aircraft. Once all the cockpit checks are completed, the engineer checks the engines and intakes for any damage to the blades. the ammunition tanks are removed. They are refilled with new rounds. Once this is completed, the full ammunition tanks are fitted back in the aircraft. The Aden gun is cocked and cycled 3 times to place the first round in the firing position. The 2-seat B version of the Jaguar is fully operational. The cockpit layout and instrumentation of this trainer is almost identical to that of the single-seater variant. The rear seat instructor has a perfect view, not only from the side, but also forwards to monitor approach, landing, and weapons aiming. The Jaguar has many attributes, making it an outstanding aircraft. Versatility in all conditions, a long-range capability, an exceptionally accurate navigational and weapons aiming system. All of these qualities are incorporated into this one single design. But they're not the only qualities which this aircraft possesses. The Jaguar has the capability to operate from the most difficult airstrips, making it ideal as a frontline aircraft. The ruggedness of the airframe and undercarriage, combined with low-pressure tires, allow it to take off from fields or makeshift runways. Motorways make an excellent substitute for runways. What makes the Jaguar so suited for these landing conditions is its low approach speed. Once down, the effective nose-wheel steering enables the aircraft to turn in the most confined areas. Since it was introduced into service over 20 years ago, the Jaguar has proved to be a highly potent attack aircraft, specializing in low-level, single-pass, high-speed sorties. Still performing a role in the Royal Air Force, for which it was not at first envisaged, the Jaguar is at the spearhead of any action. In what was thought to be the twilight of its career, the Jaguar silenced any doubts about the aircraft's capability and viability. Even in the most adverse of weather conditions, the Jaguar is able to find and attack its target with pinpoint accuracy and deadly delivery. Amongst its pilots, the Jaguar has earned a reputation of being a potent weapon and a pilot's aeroplane.
The Jaguar was actually originally designed as a training aircraft, but was replaced with the Hawk instead, and took on a role as ground strike attack, mainly based in Europe. All the conflicts that the Jaguar have been in have been quarter-shore-based Jaguars. First one being the Gulf conflict, then that was followed by Operation Warden, which was Jaguars flying out of Incirlik in Turkey, giving protection for the Kurds in northern Iraq. And we only came back from that for 6 months before being redeployed out to Italy for Operation Denial Flight over Bosnia. The Jaguars first entered operational RAF service in 1974, and although we've had a couple of updates since then, the aircraft is still due to go on to 2005 before being replaced.
It seems that every so often the world's aircraft industry produces a really good one. The Jaguar ranks alongside some of the best. In the words of a Jaguar pilot, you can choose the most difficult of targets, defend it as heavily as you wish. Now, just try and stop a well-flown Jaguar.